do the work for you. So 13, log questions. You better remember how to do your log base in your calculator. Remember, log base comes in if you hit your math button, scroll up 2 times, and you're going to see option A said log base. You better know how to do that. We just took a test over it, so I'm not going to spend any more time going over that. Scroll over to question 18 or flip your page over to question 18. That's the next one that we didn't do. This is another log question. You're rewriting in log form. You should still have your note card back, but log form, remember, is log base A. So I'm going to call base is your B for base. Then you've got some number equals another variable. We'll call it variable A. So in log form, this is not an exponent. I saw some of you writing this as an exponent. It is not an exponent. It is in the same line as your log. Remember my story. If you're switching from log over to exponent, remember my story. You start at base camp. You jump across the river to go play and catch stuff. And then my mom called me home, and I had to jump back across the river to get home. So remember, if you have a variable in exponential, switch it over to log, and you'll be able to solve it. If you have a variable in log that you can't just plug stuff in your calculator, convert it back to exponential. They get rid of each other. If you can't just plug it into your calculator, switch it over to the other form, and then you should be able to plug this in your calculator. They were just rewriting this in log, so there's my base. So I have this as log, 9 is my base. I jump across the river to go play, so N is the next thing that I write down. I jump back across the creek to go home. It's equal to negative 19. So my answer is A. Scroll over to the next page. Second hour, I will come back to completing the square. No, I won't. I did that with you guys too. So we talked about this word problem. You guys were very successful with the word problem when you guys did it in class. So we've got 2 different situations. Remember, I told you to split it apart. You have something with money, something with not money. And this was when we solved our substitution and elimination. I think that was chapter 9. So on the first day ticket sales, the school sold 9 adult tickets. And we have 10 student tickets for a total of 175. The school took in 100 on the second day by selling 7 adult tickets and 5 student tickets. So 9 adult tickets and 10 student tickets gave me $175. The next day, the school took in $100 by selling 7 adult tickets and 5 student tickets. That's an S, not a 5. What's the price of each? Well, here's your system. You can go ahead and solve this by substitution. You can solve this by elimination, which I think probably would be your easiest one. Or if you wanted to solve for one of your variables and plug them both in, you could actually graph this if you wanted to. But I do think this would be easiest to go ahead and solve for using your elimination. I would choose to eliminate your S. I would multiply this second row by a -2, which would give me 9 adult plus 10 student equals 175. Once I multiply and I distribute this -2 to everything, I would have -14 adult minus 10 student equals -200. Squish my 2 rows together, and I would have A equals 5. So right away, if this were multiple choice, which this is, I know that I have a $5 adult ticket and A is my only option for that. If I needed to go further, I would plug this A back into any one of my original equations. So we jump down to 22. 22 is your quadratic formula. Remember, it always goes A is attached to the x squared, B is attached to the x, and c is a constant by itself, it needs to be set equal to 0. In this case, it already is, so I pull out my important bits. I have a is 6, b is -8, and c is -16. Plug it into your quadratic formula. This would be something great to write down on your note card, so that way you don't have to try and memorize this. Quadratic formula: x equals opposite b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Plug it in. Be very careful because this b is negative. Keep in mind when you're squaring it, any number squared is always positive. So opposite b, b is negative, so this is going to become a positive. Plus or minus, I have -8 squared minus 4 times 6 times -16 all over 2 times a. This gives me 8 plus or minus 64 plus, because here's a negative, double negative. You have to give me a second in order for me to figure that one out. I don't know that one in my head. 4 times 16 times 6. This is plus 384 all over 12. I'm going to keep going. 8 plus or minus, add those two numbers together. This gets me 448 all over 12. And you can go ahead and tree out 448. I'm not going to waste your time doing that. So scroll down to 24. Log question. You're evaluating this log base. Do it in your calculator. Scroll down. Next question that we did not cover. We didn't talk about this question number 27 specifically, but this is exactly something we've already done. You're solving it by graphing. Plug them both into your calculator, into your y equals. Go into your second trace, so find your calc menu. And you're going to do your intersect option. Option number 5, intersect. And if you have this intersect, it's going to give you the answer to it. So you don't even have to do a single bit of work. Flip over to question number 28. Here we've talked about this multiple times. You have your power to your power. This is a great thing to write down because you guys really struggled sometimes remembering all these power rules. So off to the side here, I'll do your power rule. If you have the same base, so same base, and both of them are raised to a power, this becomes the situation where you add those bases. If you have, in this case, like we have in this problem, a power to a power, this is that situation where those powers get multiplied. 4 times 7. If you are dividing, so I have a to the 4th divided by a to the 7th, this is where you subtract. Multiply, power to a power, divide with this negative exponent. If it's negative in the numerator, then it's going to be positive in the denominator. If it's negative in the denominator, then it's going to be positive in the numerator. Do you need that over 1? No, but just know how to flip-flop things around. So here I have a power to a power. That tells me that I need to multiply, and this is going to give me n cubed c. Last but not least is question number 32. Question 32, you have to rationalize. Remember, rationalizing means multiply by whatever is in that denominator, because our goal, this is 5 to the first and this is 5 to the first. Two small square roots give you one big square root. So this is 3 times square root of 20 times square root of 5. Technically, this becomes square root 5 times square root 5, which then becomes two little square roots is one big square root. 20 times 5 is 100. 5 times 5 is 25. Well, we know the square root of 100, that's 10. So this becomes 3 times 10. Square root of 25 is 5. My answer comes out to be A, 6. Rationalizing, rationalizing, rationalizing. You cannot leave that denominator with a root down there. You have to simplify that. So I believe this covers all of the questions in this Practice 080 exam. I will FaceTime you guys as long as I can get on the internet here at the hospital. I will do my best to FaceTime you. Please, please, please make sure you have that note card filled out. You have one whole page. Pull out your old notes from previous chapters. You have your last 3 sections, chapters 10, 11, and 12 at minimum, on your Math Excel account right now. Open some of those old homeworks up. Open those chapter reviews up. Make sure you know how to do all of those problems. Okay? Third hour, you can go ahead and turn this off. Second hour, I do want to cover one of the questions that I skipped with you. I believe it was the quadratic equation question. So second hour, please head back up to question number 22. It is not question 22. I just did that one with you guys. It was question 8. I did not do question 8. So keep flipping. Go back to question 8. Don't tune me out yet. Question 8. Biggest problem with this one. We already covered a quadratic formula. You should have that written down. But what I want you to pay attention to is looking at that equation. It is not set equal to 0. So the very first thing that you guys have to do, you've got your 2x squared. You're going to subtract that 9x over to make sure that this is set equal to 0. You cannot do the quadratic formula until it is set equal to 0. So we can kind of make a little mental note. Must be equal to 0. So at this point, you can pick out your A, you can pick out your B, and you can pick out your C. So once again, when you do your quadratic formula, please make sure that you put parentheses around that -9 when you square it. Otherwise, your calculator will not give you the correct answer. And just in case you didn't write it down the first time, you have x equals opposite b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. Make sure you have that in there. I believe that pretty much covers everything, guys. Please know how to use your calculator. I've written down the directions. I've told you where to find it. I'm not going to be answering questions on the day of the exam. Where do you find this in your calculator? That is something you need to know. So study it, know where to find those things in your calculator. Okay, so I will be at school early. Come see me tomorrow morning if you guys need any help on anything else. If you want to go over anything, don't forget, I gave you that compass review packet. You can certainly go through the Algebra 2 section if you wanted more questions, if you wanted more practice. All the answers are there. Do your best. Get a good night of sleep. I will see you tomorrow.